Here we are another week at Mutant Woods. You can't believe how excited I am for this. So we're talking the arc The Labors of Magik, which is an arc in the recent run of New Mutants. And it's written, like the run written by Vita Ayala with art by REIS, who is here with us today, as well as Yander Sema and other collaborators which do like the uh, flashback scenes, but Rod does most of the like general art that we want to talk about very deeply today. And it's 4 issues that I'm so excited to get into, and that's why I recruited the most Magic Illyana fans in the world. Uh, Conor, also Conor reads X-Men, unusual. So if you watch this, you know Connor. And Aislinn Black, who does has started a YouTube series that I'm so excited about, which is called Mutant Memories, and goes over every issue of New Mutants, first volume, the volume 1 of New Mutants, like talking deeply about her relationship with those issues, as well as like the context. It's really good. You should all check it out. So anyway, we have the usuals. We have Travis here with us. So excited to have you, Travis, and we have Gabriel, without whom I wouldn't do all of this, and and me, Duna, and we're so excited to go. And please ask us anything. We have Rod here today, and we're gonna sing our praises to Vida, who couldn't come because they are busy as fuck all the time. But we miss you, Vida, and let's go.
This week on Mutant Watch.
So, for starters, I know all of you have a lot of notes, a lot of questions. This arc of New Mutants is focused mainly on 4 characters, but really it's 2 who make like the main characters. I'm not forgetting Mavi. It's an arc focused on Illyana, and it's showing a lot of the phases of Illyana in her life, and it's also focused on Mavi and like the exchange of the Throne of Limbo between Illyana and Mavi and how that goes. And as villains, we have the usual. We have some surprises, but we have the usual Sim and Belasko. And first of all, well, I'm so excited to ask questions to Roth, but I'm also excited to hear what is everyone's highlight from here. What is the moment where you're like, including Roth, what is the moment where you really were like, oh my god, this is amazing? Because I have a couple of mine in mind, and I do believe like Vida gets into Iliana's character in a way that I haven't felt in years. I'm goosebumps. So anyway, what is everyone's highlight? Whoever wants to start first.
First, thank you very much for having me here. And I have to say the magical transformation for the new armor. That's the highlight for me for sure.
I would say the new armor, also probably just the ending, even though I know like Madelyne Pryor goes on to do some not so great things with Limbo. I think just having it break the cycle for Illyana was really important. At first, I was a little bit like, oh, she's not going to be like the leader of Limbo. And that was so interesting. But at the same time, and after I thought about it for a little while, I was like, well, now she gets to break all these cycles. And this arc, as well as many of her other arcs, seem to have like a lot of like circular motion, a lot of like things repeating each other, like Colossus coming to help her, like he kind of did in Inferno, the original one. So I just really liked that that theme was continued, but also, you know, it was broken at the same time at the end. I really liked that. Does that make sense?
And also, I like how the transformation, the new armor, is the culmination of Illyana's journey. It's uh, on the art standpoint, of course, it was a lot of fun for me to work on the transformation, the fun of everything. But the meaning of the new armor is is more important if you understand Illyana's journey, everything that you just said, the the struggle, the relationship with the brother, and I think that the best part of the ending, the way the story ending is, uh, Illyana is ready for her next step. What is next for the character?
Yeah, I completely agree. Like it was in a way closing her arc, but it felt so nice to watch her really be able to be like, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to become a teacher and I'm going to use what I know to help others. And it just signifies her healing so much, especially after what her and Colossus have been through with, you know, him kind of becoming like the juggernaut force and all of that that went on between them. Like it was just nice to symbolically not only see the new armor, which I agree you did a great job on, and I think it's nice that it wasn't black too, which was kind of cool. But yeah, I think it was an ending but a beginning at the same time, and that was really nice.
Yeah, I'm on the same page. I feel like it goes without saying, like the magical girl transformation and like the pun native to that is just so well done and so beautiful. The fact that it is like ultimately like it, it's her giving herself that transformation. Like it's not coming from like some weird limboian artifact that she found. It's like, no, it's literally a piece of herself restoring herself. That's so wonderful. Like I was trying to get it. There's as far as I can tell, there's like five different, if you count the little goblin, there's five different. If you count the Mad Hatter, also there's six different Ilyanas in this story, which I love because um it really allows this like just incredible examination at like of this character at different points of her journey, like separating out from story, like looking at a trauma narrative. It's like all of these different facets of that, and just the reconciliation where, and I think and I want to keep it to Labors of Magic because I know I can be prone to talk about Inferno, but like this feels like the reconciliation between um Yana's like adult self and the child of her that she has constantly felt like she failed and couldn't protect, like as far back as Inferno. um like I think it's 27, there's the line of like, you've already saved us and you will again. Like I like that at the end, like Ilyana is the hero of her own story in such an incredible way, um that sort of counteracts like how she perceives herself as the villain of it. Like it's just the whole, everything you and Vita did, Rod, was like just so beautifully done. The art complements that story and that
Thank you.
reconciliation.
Thank you.
Ah,
You had mentioned you wanting to not like keep it on Labors of Magic and not bring Inferno, but I feel like that's impossible because it is such a good mirror to Inferno. When we had our last show about Inferno, we spoke a lot about how Maddie and Illyana would like kind of like different ways of coping or not coping with trauma, and it kind of gave a very magical solution to how Illyana resolved the trauma of it just never happened. Wherein I feel like Labors of Magik takes both Illyana and Maddie and gives them control over how their trauma heals, and it treats them both with that respect of coming to a healing through their actions, through their choices. And it is a very, like, it gives control back, and I absolutely love that. And the parallels it drew between the original Inferno with the way the parallels between the art of the storybook with the little goblin and the main storyline, it was an incredible arc.
See, I feel kind of bad because this is the one group where I will be the least of the Illyana fans. Because
I'm here for Maddie, Travis. Just gonna say that.
Oh yeah, no, I am definitely, yeah. I'm a bigger Maddie fan than, yeah, no. That may not even be true. Somebody will show me up. But the highlight for me, I just reread the arc. I actually just reread the run, getting ready for this, and the highlight of the arc for me is the warlock that has enmeshed in Limbo there, and his little pointy horns that he's got. It's this very, he's got that svelte look that he had in the Warlock solo, and then these goofy little horns. And it is the most sort of naive and childish looking, like cartoon devil look for someone who clearly has been corrupted and is in that moment a big threat. But it's such a cute look that it makes it very uncomfortable. And I thought, like, as a design aspect, I really loved that.
Okay, I am so happy. I'm okay. So yeah, I can't contain myself. I would agree with all of you of the transformation thing. I think it's difficult to top that moment because it like encompasses all that happens, and as we talk about the narrative of the issues, like it's very clear that like that is such a beautiful moment for Illyana, and it totally sold a new like look for me. Like that was the point where I was like, this is so good, and like the reference to like the magical transformation, it was so good. But my personal favorite moment was the first. I don't know if it was the first introduction to the little goblin. I think it was more like the moment where the little goblin looks in the mirror and there's all these different places of herself or like moments of her life, and she's looking at them. And there's this beautiful phrase, and I don't know how it was. It's like, when all hope is lost, you have like choice. So it's it makes me like almost cry now, because it's like this moment of like you lost like a lot of yourself to trauma, but that you have like a choice with what you do now. And it's a really powerful like message of like just self-recovery. Like this is a story, like I think it's a lot of things, like we can talk about how it's a lot of things, but I think it's a story of like Illyana's self-recovery as well, because there's a lot of moments where she's like especially because like, and Gabriel and I were talking about this before, Rain and Danny here are kind of assholes sometimes, and as they have always been, kind of. But like, and there's one moment in which Danny is like, "You're sure you're gonna like leave this place to Maddie?" And Illyana is like, "Why are you mad that I'm leaving this place that is so much pain for me behind?" And that's so good for me because like it feels like it's talking to us fans as well. Like, cause I'm also like, I also don't want for Illyana to constantly suffer. So it's good for like having her explicitly say like, I'm not Limbo. I am not my trauma. I'm a lot more things. And I don't know, that moment of the little goblin with the mirror and all that, it clearly says to me like, you have a lot of things. It's for me, it's like the mirror moment to the transformation, because it's like these are all the things that you're leaving behind. They're also part of you, but you have the choice to like choose how you self recover. So good.
Yeah, that scene.
ahead.
I'm sorry, Travis.
Yeah,
No, go
go.
ahead.
Oh, I was gonna say, no, I couldn't help but think of, and I don't know if this was like part of the inspiration for it, like, because so much of like Limbo as a narrative tool is this idea of like confronting different parts of yourself, and it made me think of in the build up to Inferno when Sim comes out of a computer and appears to Maddie and sort of tricks her and shows her these like 4 different versions of herself and his nails, and she gets to pick which path she's going to choose, like that shattering of self. And like, when you put this back together, what is it going to look like? It felt like there was a lot of symmetry between those 2 moments, but this time with Yana, who otherwise like hasn't ever been given a choice to define self. It's just like, you are just the dark child. This is, like her whole journey is like trying to find a self-definition absent that, and it's something she struggles with until her first death, and then she's a baby and then she dies again, and then when she's brought back and she's this like more of a husk of self than a full person for like those first, like in like the Wells New Mutants runs, where it's like, this is sort of not Yana but sort of is, and like this is just her sort of no longer being subjected exclusively to this like limbo destiny that has been set before her. I just, so good.
Yeah, I agree, because even when she was a baby, like, not to go totally off topic, but when the soul skinner comes and her parents are killed, she's still being manipulated by these people, and they're still trying to use her. Basically, over and over and over again, she gets used. Like when Professor Xavier makes her go back into limbo and teleport the New Mutants home from space, like, just over and over and over. She never has a choice, and the transformation and giving Maddie limbo, even if it was or wasn't the right choice, was her having some sense of control, which was amazing to see, because it seems like in the past, every time she gets a little bit, it's just like ripped away from her again by someone who wants to control her and use her. And it just feels like she came to her own in this, and that was very nice.
I think with X-Men comics, or X comics kind of in general, because there's such a kind of BDSM vibe that came through for so many decades, there's this sense that that communicates to readers that you're supposed to have this pride in your trauma, and in some ways that can be healthy. One of the things that we did, in Duna and I are working on a book on the Invisibles, and there's exercises in it, and one of the exercises is learning to stop having pride or putting all of your pride in your trauma. And I think Illyana definitely has been raised and re-raised and re-raised to have that sense of that's where you were your strongest, is in the shittiest moments.
Mm-hmm.
And I know reading it this last time, I thought about when I was younger, when I was first in college, I got beat to hell by some people at my school. They hit me with their SUV over and over again while I was dropping videos off at Blockbuster Video at night. And I ended up dropping out of school. I ended up depressed, this whole thing. A few days after I'd been through the hospital and everything, I got out and I had gone to my local comics shop. And someone that worked there gave me a Zippo out of the tray because I was all messed up. And they were like, for not dying, basically. And I carried that with me forever. I had that. I was very much always prepared. Always have a pocket knife, always have a lighter kind of person for years. And I carried that lighter, and I was flying out of somewhere, and they had changed the rules, and they wouldn't allow you to even fly with the Zippo, even if it was in a checked bag. And they're like, we have to either ship it or destroy it. And in that moment, I was suddenly like, after this was like 20 years later, I was like, get rid of it. I'm like, you can keep it if you want. But it really felt like I had taken all that trauma and I just gave it to somebody at TSA, and that's kind of where I saw Illyana in this, is that she really gets to not have that, even if her friends miss it, even if her family misses it, or it's how other people know how to relate to her. That's not her responsibility.
Yeah, she even says when she's talking to Peter at the end of this arc, like, it was so easy to be angry. And she kind of, in a roundabout way, says that, like, she drew power from, like, being angry. And that's who she was. And that's how she was defined. And not only the new costume, but getting a new soul sword and building a soul sword from a different place than where she was before is really powerful. And I think a great, like, I think it's great to see. I do.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned the soul sword, because when the first got broken, it's the point where the story starts for me, and that also represents the whole struggle that is going to be happening through the mini, through the story. And it's good when you see a new soul sword and a new armor, that our goal was to represent that we had a new Illyana. And with the design and for both soul sword and the armor, I wanted to represent that the story was important, and was we wanted to show a new character for for the future. We wanted to show visually that the transformation for someone better just happened.
I gotta say, okay, so one thing I think you really like nail like that transformation, and I think to what Travis just said, because like there's one reason that I really also relate to Illyana, and I feel like it's one of the reasons why I really really love that Illyana, like the first volume of New Mutants, is because like as a result of like my trauma and bullying and all of that, I have always been a really sarcastic person. Like I really like hide myself behind like jokes and like especially like kind of like dark humor and like really like defensiveness, and that's something that really like is within Illyana's characters in that first volume of New Mutants. Of course, when she comes back, like in the new like the new comics, new X-Men and all of that, there's also some of that, but it's less consistent and it's more like within like this kind of like evil, like when she turns Colossus into the Juggernaut, like all those storylines are like more. I feel like it's less subtle. It's more like it's less subtle than in the first volume of New Mutants. But in the first volume, I really identify with her character because of that. And I feel like one thing that Illyana does in this story and like transforms into her new self is like get rid of those things that she learned from trauma and that are not helping her. And that's like that's an incredible lesson for a comic to have, to be honest, because that's something that I don't know, I have began to like do that recently, like really like to examine the things that are not useful, are just like not serving what I want to be for myself, and I just therefore like as a defense that I had to have, because when you go through like the shit that Illyana goes through is some shit that you have to have some defenses for. And there's one thing that is beautiful about this story is that it shows the past as well in the flashbacks. So it shows why and how she has to have those mechanisms. Like for example, the moment when she's talking to Colossus who is dead, and she's reading her book to Colossus who is dead, and it's this whole thing of like she misses her brother. She doesn't even know he's outside alive. That's not even within her realm of possibilities. So she just has this zombie, and she's just like, it's what it is. It's what it is. It's, you have to survive. Have you have to survive, and it's beautiful that Illyana is like, yes, I am changing that. I am changing how I live, and it's also beautiful that like it's heartbreaking, but it's beautiful that when Illyana is like, I'm gonna save myself again. She always does that. She's like, I'm gonna save myself as a child. Now, go with me, child. And and Illyana as a child is like, no, I'm seeing who I'm becoming and I'm liking this, so I'm gonna live through this because I like who you are. And that's when Illyana is like, okay, this child likes who I am, and I don't even know if I like who I am, so I need to work on that. And like to get to a point where I like who I am. And that's, I feel like that's something that you like both Peta and you with the are nailed in the story, because this is like almost like a story of like self realization and like I don't know, it's powerful. It's powerful because it shows the things that Illyana is worth it without basing everything of it of her being traumatized.
And one thing that you said, Duna, was that you know, when you're trying to survive trauma, you do what you have to. Like, and for little baby Illyana, that was cuddling up with a corpse. That is what she had to do to survive. But a lot of this story kind of gave that power to having options, like you said, with how that first issue ended with the mirror shattered and it being about choice. And it was no longer doing things out of a survival necessity. It was doing things to heal, doing things to progress, doing things to grow. And that's it was, like you said, it's powerful.
Well, even when the soul sword, her first soul sword breaks, and Danny keeps referring to it as you're having trouble manifesting the soul sword. If you could just, bring it back. And it is not part of it. One, it's broken, is broken, but it's not a self-identification that she wants anymore, clearly. And there are those levels of, we don't, I mean, what is a soul? Kind of, I don't want to like dig into that, and we're going to spend the next hour. What is a soul? But in terms of the comics themselves, in terms of this world, that we've seen that the soul sword is transferable, that we've seen that these soul swords are, it's not a whole person. It's not a person. It's not invested in, which I think, Danny and some others really do invest that in a way that is their version of Illyana, or their whole of Illyana. It's the snarky jokes, it's the moodiness, it's some kind of darkness, that frisson. And I get that, and I know that with, I think we all know that with friends that we have or family that we have, and that we kind of miss when they're not able to have that kind of humor anymore, or they're not willing to engage in those kind of practices anymore. But as an individual, Illyana has to make the choice. And I'll bring in Maddie here as well. I think in this arc, that's a choice that Maddie has to make. I was afraid to read this arc when it was first announced and going to come out. Not that I don't trust, Vita and Rod, but I didn't in that moment. I was like, because I've been burned by X comics before. And I feel there's a lot of politics in the representation of both Illyana and Maddie. And there are very famous, popular comics, beloved comics with both of them that drive me nuts or annoy the heck out of me. The death of Illyana in the 90s, everybody loves that issue. And I'm like, 90% of the issue doesn't have to do with Illyana. There's like 2 quick scenes that have 8,000 words in them, most of which are not about Illyana. And so I feel burned by that. I think there's a lot of politics in Maddie and how much she was jerked around and, really pushed to be the demon of the X-Men. And so bringing her back in any kind of context, I was like, how are they going to play that where it doesn't do that, even if it's unintentional, even if it's not, evil? How do you play those politics? And I think this arc did it really well. And it did it by just separating both of them from a need to fulfill these niches that they've fulfilled in every other story.
Yeah, I think one of, like, outside of the Yana of it all, like one of the strongest recurring beats of the whole arc is like Maddie's consistent insistence of like, no, I'm a person and I'm standing right here. Like she's refusing to let herself be objectified by the narrative in a way that she often historically is. And like there's something very meta about like Yana and Danny having this conversation, and she just like asserts like, no, I'm she and I'm standing right here. And like the way you're talking about me isn't a good look for either of you. Is like this, like the book doesn't hide the fact that Maddie is still pissed. Mm-hmm. And like it leaves you wondering a little bit, like the ending is a little dubious, and even without like foreknowledge of like, and then dark web happens, like it is a little dubious and like, was this a great idea? But I think insofar as like giving Maddie a chance to make a decision free from the influence of Sinister, of any myriad Summers,
Havoc,
boys,
yeah.
any of them. But I do like though that I think as well intentioned as Yana was in like, because it's the preceding issue where she's like at a bar with Richter commiserating over their queer trauma. And they sort of see Maddie across the bar, and Yana has this idea of like, oh, this is it. Like, I do think that there is a little bit of selfishness in Illyana's decision to like select Maddie that like can't go undiscussed, of like, oh, well, I know this other traumatized person, and like there's a good sell here for why she should take over the throne of Limbo. I do think there's that shades a little bit, but it's like it is overall well intentioned. But and Maddie says this too, like this point of like, how is this any different than Alex insisting that I be resurrected? Like she really tries to take the New Mutants to task to like treat her like a human capable of making decisions and choices and like affording her agency in a way that I love. And I love that like we did the whole series in the original just full underboob Goblin Queen outfit in all of its glory. That thank you, Rod, for drawing it. Just thank you. So good.
No, the best one of the best part of the job is to redesign some things that for example the whole for the window boobs that's the, I don't know if that's the name of I got rid of that because
that was a great idea.
Yeah, no, I
Great idea.
never understood why that would make sense for the character, but no, probably for other character that would work, but for me, not for Illyana. I don't see I never saw the character as a sexualized character.
I really appreciate that, because with everything that, whether you want to argue that possibly she was sexually abused or not, like having that trauma in general and then sexualizing her, especially when she never even got the chance to really like figure herself out, maybe like her sexual identity or her general identity, making her into like this sex object really rubbed me the wrong way. And honestly, I kind of stopped reading for a little while because it just, some of the stuff they were doing with Illyana, I was just like, this really doesn't feel right to me. And this arc and the work that you guys did with the whole run that I read most of what you illustrated so far. It really felt right. Like the illustrations felt right. Illyana looked right. She just looked like a person, not like, just like huge boobs and all this stuff. And also, like, Illyana, as far as I know, is not that old too. I know she's not a teenager anymore, but it just seemed weird and it didn't fit. And I think what you did and the costume redesign fits so well. And I want to thank you for that. You did a really great job.
Thank you. Yeah. And I think that Mad has the right amount of sexual power, because I think that fits to the character, but I don't like in general. I don't like to go this way to for female characters to make what's the name yeah, it's so sexualized. Yeah, I don't like to draw character women in that way. I don't like.
I mean, I used to joke that, I don't ever need to see a teenage character in an X book's underwear ever again, because we have so many.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
But I think this run, I mean, the whole run, really, the design sense in this seems so much more deliberate and conscious. And I think in superhero comics, in comics in general, we get a lot of design aspects that don't have anything to do with story or character, especially sexualization. Characters will be sexualized out of nowhere. It'll be the most traumatic, emotional moment, and somebody is bent over to, display their boob window for us.
Mhm.
And this run, every page, every costume design, the way that characters, their body language, everything seems very deliberate and considered. And that's intense for like a monthly run. For a regular run, it's unusual to see that much. I don't know how much of that was deliberate on your part or conscious. I think a lot of it, but it feels very deliberate.
Yeah. I mean, even Maddie, who is in probably the most sexualized outfit, like, it doesn't feel like it's for like the gaze of the reader as much as it does feel that, like, much in the way that like Emma's outfits are often like straddle this line of like gaziness, but also like armor for her. So like they're like it, and Maddie's, even though it is we'll say a threadbare outfit, like it never feels framed in a way that's like, look at this. It's like this is just what Madelyne Pryor is wearing today here in hell. And I love that. The thing about like the black costume Yana redesign is always the tension of like, how much of like a character's actions do we assign to like them in world as if they were real, and how much of it do we assign like the creator? Like, is this a creator responding to a market that like wants hypersexualized women, or is this in universe a character that has been victimized and abused, like self hypersexualizing as is like a common response? And so it's like, but I think that like the gold outfit like lets her keep, for it's like so much less armored, like, so there is also this sense that like she doesn't feel that she needs to be as protected and like spiky on the outside as she once was. Like, it's there, but it's not like the giant Bowser shell looking thing she had on her shoulder. So there's just such a language about the character in her design as well that's like so awesome.
Mm-hmm. And just for as a curiosity, I initially I wanted to make the whole outfit white in contrast to the black, but the editorial told me that in that case she would look a lot like Emma.
Yeah. I do know that there was a certain period of time where Dazzler was just decked out in all white as well, and it just led to, for like casual readers and me also, it led to just some confusion of like two blonde chicks next to each other, decked out in white. It made Dazzler seem less unique when she is such a rich character. So I am kind of glad that we didn't get that with Magik, because Magik is so different from Emma. And having her own unique design, I think she is owed that.
I would have liked it in this comic. I would have liked it if it had been in this arc. I'm going to continue and keep reading other comics, but I really don't care about next year's comics or even next month's comics. I'm really interested in the comic I'm reading. So reading this, I would have really liked an all-white costume. And I think if an artist can't find a way to differentiate between Magik and Emma or another blonde, that's really a flaw in the artist. I mean, even the loosest or most abstract art, you should be able to communicate in some way that these are different. I don't know. I don't quite.
I'm kind of sad they didn't trust you to do the all white costume, because I think you could have done it for sure. Yeah.
No, I think that the all white costume would make a lot of sense for our story. But in the other hand, I like it that we went with the gold, because Illyana had already a silver armor.
Mm-hmm.
So probably it's for the best to have her something very new, completely new, to show that she is a new person right now.
Yeah, and
I made one of the transformations. I had the reference of the silver armor.
Mhm.
I don't know if you guys remember when I think that is the third or fourth transformation. She has all silver armor.
Yeah,
Mhm.
I know this. Okay, now that we're talking about the science, and I feel like this is a perfect moment to talk about each one of the Ilyanas, because like since we're talking with Roth about the science, so like if okay, let's go in order. I feel the first Illyana that appears that is not the main Illyana is Little Goblin, right? So how did the Little Goblin come up? Because that's such a great idea.
It's all Vita's. It's their concept, the whole thing. They Vita showed me references for the visuals. So and in that case, I just did the way that Vita thought about the character.
I
But,
love that.
it's funny to listen to you guys that you have so much deeper comments about the story, and when you work with everything, you need to read the script and come up with the page design for the story, and it's another perspective, and it's I don't have the way that you guys the perception of the story is completely different from the what I have. And in the case of the little goblin, I didn't realize until the end what the character meant for the story. And I so many things about this arc. I just realized it at the end when I finished the last page.
I love the framing of the fairy tale, like within the story itself, like because it is very meta, and then the way that it becomes literalized by the end of the story, where now I can't think of his name. My brain is saying it's Dorcas. It's not the wizard who like briefly appears.
Furcus?
Furcus, who
That guy.
appears after being like rescued by young Illyana, which is like a separate thread to touch on at some point. But I just my favorite thing about the fairy tale framing is that it feel like, was that designed to give you a chance to like flex your talents a little differently, because like it is a distinct art from the main narrative. Like it feel like, was that done to like, here's like a crazy fairy tale story, have a black, because like it's just, it's so like the page turn, knowing like, oh, these are both Rod, but they are so distinct when you look at them. Like,
and that's the, it's everything on purpose. Is it is one of the things that shows that our collaboration, Vida and I, what we did, it was so we have always been in on the same page from the very beginning. And they asked me about what you want to draw, uh, what would you think about this part, this book, what's the name, those pages, the storybook pages, what do you think about, so it's always had been a conversation about, we became very good friends, and everything, it's most of the things, it's a perfect connection between the story and the artwork. And I had a lot of freedom to to, to to have some input on the arc. A lot of things, it's my are my ideas. The those those part of stories, it's all something that we talked about, and something that I wanted to do, the different styles. Uh, the first one is more a storybook for kids, children storybooks. Then the second one, I think it's more sci-fi. So it's everything. It's part of a back and forth in between Vida and I, and conversations, and monthly Skype meetings, and to talk about both the story and the art, and it's that's why I loved I Had a Blast, because it's so rare nowadays to have a collaboration like this, and everything that you love it about is because we clicked, and we could make our stuff, and that's it. That's, you can see through the whole thing, the artwork and the script.
yeah, your run really feels like the two of you together is really such like lightning in a bottle magic. Like it really is. I mean,
Agreed.
it feels, you know, it's hard not to make this comparison for me when I read Vita and yours run, is like it feels like New Mutants 18 as Sienkiewicz takes
That's exactly what I was going to say.
and like the book is redefined, and it becomes like it just changes the whole tone of New Mutants, and like crystallizes for me what I think of when I think of the New Mutants as characters, and like what their story is about, and it taking on this more dramatic and dark turn, but in a way that is still really optimistic and hopeful for like a future for mutants as metaphor. Like the two of you combined probably come the closest to that original synergy, and what I love about the New Mutants, and then like you exceed it, and
Yeah,
like
Yeah.
really,
no, I agree, and and this the same thing that you could say about the artwork. I was channeling Sienkiewicz. I think Vida were channeling a little of Chris Claremont in a good way for both.
The fact that you had to say that.
A good homage for that era.
Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do see that as well, and I'm gonna make a little note here because I'm loving the new Mutants Lethal Legion stuff that is being published right now, and I do believe that that does seem more like the Simonson era in a lot of ways. So it's funny to me that we're like kind of like in a way eh, going back to those storylines and those styles of telling stories. But it's also like Connor said, it's succeeding because it's also different in a lot of ways. Because like in because those were the 80s, and in the 80s you couldn't have the story that you and Bita did with Amal Farouk. That wasn't within the realm of what people were thinking about in terms of like worldview and politics in the 80s. And probably in a lot of ways you could also not have exactly what you both have here with Illyana, because like okay, I admire a lot what Chris Claremont and Louis Simonson did with Illyana, but there were a lot of things about like child abuse that were not being discussed as they are discussed today. And I know Bita is someone who took this very seriously and who like didn't. I appreciate a lot, and I'm gonna sing my praises here. I appreciate a lot that Bita didn't go deep into it, like didn't make us suffer a lot.
There wasn't exploitative. It wasn't
Yeah.
like too much.
Yeah, but at the same time, there were a lot of like little moments here and there which were really important. Like I don't remember, but there's phrases with Illyana which she says things that are like so that someone has really a comprehensive vision of child abuse that I don't know if it was exactly possible in the 80s. So yeah, that's part of why I think it's also like as well as you both being like amazing artists, I think you also channel some things that I feel I'm glad that can exist today. I'm glad that this way of telling stories is not exactly repeating, but like changing and like like an homage, but at the same time you're developing it further.
And Vita know how to touch on some subjects like very you don't see writers discuss some themes just because sometimes they don't know how to touch, so they even try. But Vita, they know how uh, to talk about some issues, some like diversity. And last year in New York, I received a lot of love from the queer community, and so I'm so proud that we did something that matters, that important for so many people for different reasons. And yeah, and the main reason, of course, I am very when I work on this kind of stories, I pay attention to what I'm going to draw and how, because it's important in that sense that people, the goal is to connect to people and to make them think about those issues and those themes. But that's all Vita. They know how to approach those themes, and they they do so well, and that's the the strength of our collaboration ship.
I gotta say that I'm gonna sing your praises as well, because I also feel like this is not only a story thing, this is also a visual thing. There are a lot of ways of showing these themes, and I feel like you had a lot of respect for the characters. Like that's something that comes across, not just talking to you, but like seeing your art. I feel like you have a lot of respect for what these characters mean for a lot of people.
I think you had said earlier that you didn't know fully where the story was going till the very ending, but the story itself was so cohesive, I never would have guessed. And that tells me how well you and Vita worked together and the trust you guys had in each other. And Vita told this story with such an understanding of what trauma is and what trauma does and how to heal from trauma. It was the second issue in the arc, and the dialogue hit so hard I had to, take a little picture on my phone. And despite being an ass for most of the story, it came from Danny, where they're in the blizzard, and Danny stops Illyana and just says, "You may not be bleeding, but what happened was devastating. You can't just expect to immediately bounce back." And it, to me, that just hit home how much of an understanding of the story you two were telling, that it really resonated.
Good, good.
No, the politics of this whole run. I hate that I keep saying the word politics, but I mean really, um, explicitly. I think for this, because Krakoa as an era, I'm not a big fan of a lot of like the Quiet Council and who they choose to be in charge of things. Like, I'm kind of okay with them choosing Maddie to go run hell, because it's like they put Sinister on a council. They'll put anybody. If you've done something bad enough, they'll give you a high-powered job in this new country, which isn't that different from how we do things, in our world. But that this run was able to comment on that, I think, both in dialogue and visually. I don't know why I cared so much about clones and clone rights in this run, but like growing up in the 80s when AIM was kind of on its last legs here, the American Indian movement and stuff, I felt like a kid again, kind of in that politics of, yeah, you can just be erased out of things. There's the arc that leads into Maddie with Gabby, where Gabby's like, if I die, am I going to get cloned? And they're like, well, what's a clone? And you're not really a clone because you've grown and changed, but this other person, they're a clone, and dupes, as they call them, and this kind. That's really a way that they, we wipe people out in our world. Not just with murder, which is a real way that it is done, but these excuses of there's overpopulation, so we have to, quietly start removing people's reproductive rights, or that there needs to be a visual presence for this, but it can't be too much representation, right? We see that as a complaint with entertainment a lot, that there's too many queers in this comic, there's too many Black people on this television show, there's too many, that's a real thing. And so it really resonated that way, but that these characters are also visually prominent. That when we see Gabby, she is literally at one point thrown into a group of other students, but she throws herself in a real way. When we see Maddie in this arc, and even with, the classic Goblin Queen kind of look, I feel in a way like after you've been in a relationship with Scott Summers, you have this urge to like have an autonomous sexuality. Like, that really felt like a character thing where like, that's a way to be like, no, I am an individual separate from this. Why Havoc then dresses like her is a separate issue. But in this run, I thought there's a lot of that. There's a lot of standing up with Rain, who doesn't get as much attention as I would have liked, just because I really love Rain. But in the moments that she gets, there's that classic Wolfsbane kind of pulling in recession, but then there's a lot of very strong throwing herself forward. And some of that is story, and some of that is purely visual. But I think for me, it really felt in character for these characters, but also like I felt understood reading the comics more than I do some of the others, which I won't name, where the politics or the way that these beats are handled make me feel like I wouldn't be welcome in this world in a sense, or this is it's that welcome to the X-Men. I hope you survive the experience. Sometimes in these comics, I feel like that's just throwing people to the wolves. And in New Mutants and in this run, I felt like there's a real sense of no, people will lift each other up, and there is space for these different characters. There's space for different people.
Yeah, there's a moment where Maddie literally said like, "Krakow is her limbo,"
Mhm.
uh, which I think it's a powerful moment for what Travis just said, because it shows that like it kind of like it what Illyana, and again I have not read Dark Web, so that's
Don't.
gonna be on Connor and Gabriel, but I yeah, but I know that like the final moment for Maddie, and like I'm going to the final of the story, even though I want to talk about some other things in the middle later, but like the final moment for Maddie, it feels like Illyana is in some way trying to make justice, which also kind of like fits with her character for me, and it's also like it's also also kind of a bold justice because it's not like I'm doing everything for Maddie. It's like Maddie does things for herself. Like she knows what she's gonna do. That's her whole business. It's not mine. But it does feel like giving Maddie like more
Agency.
agency. Thank you, Gabriel. Agency over her story, and it reflects in the whole moment where she's like, I don't like Krakow, I really like Limbo, I'm gonna be the queen of hell, this is cool. So yeah, which also visually is amazing.
Yeah.
Like it's the moment in which Maddie gets mad and like it's vibrant red. It's
Your
So
expressions are like your facial expression
Yeah,
work
your
is
patience.
so
Yeah,
incredible.
so good.
Yeah, and I have to point out that also Mary also gained a weapon for her.
The-
the
Which
scythe.
yeah, and that was a fun conversation about what uh, what weapon she would have, and Jordan suggested the scythe, and
I
I loved the idea, and we that's the weapon that we worked into the story.
I definitely love the scythe as Maddie's weapon. Travis, you had mentioned earlier that um, Maddie kind of having this kind of sexuality does make sense for her character, but the redesign with the weapon not being something overly sexual and with the outfit changing to no longer being the physics defying underboob, it it's still a sexual look to fit with the character, but it's not that overly sexualized look. And I know we spoke a lot about Magik's transformation, which as we should, but also I think that Maddie's outfit transformation was also done masterfully, even if it was a more subtle change. And I do think the scythe is part of that because it is still it's a powerful weapon and it's powerful in her hands as we saw.
I agree. Yeah, my first idea was to have her have for Mary to have a small knife, like a thief, a small knife from RPG. You know what I mean?
Mhm.
Yeah,
More something that a RPG character, a thief character would use.
Like
But
that.
I love it the scythe idea.
I guess to go back to Gabe, what you're talking about with Maddie's outfit change, like I think what I love about it so much, it's like, again, in the same way that Yana's outfit transition is about this like reclamation of self, like the whole original Goblin Queen outfit is this corruption of Jean's little black dress, like on purpose, and then is torn to bits so that like Silvestri is trying to communicate like she's crazy now. Look at how insane she looks, and everything's just hanging out. Like it's supposed to make her read as like unhinged and read as unstable. And so to see her have an outfit that is not a derivative of Jean in really any way visually that I can depict, and be like be put together, like that is not torn to shreds, that is like fitting her station as queen, which she's been calling herself from the beginning, like is so cool. And I love the scythe because like I mean like the picture of it is just itself like a really badass image of just like Maddie has a big honking scythe now, and cool. There's also like the symbolism of like, and now everyone is going to reap what they've sown, like that, like to make the Jean comparison, like if Phoenix is life bringing, like there's obvious symbolism of the scythe, like it really carves her out as unique in this really quick visual way that I just think is so cool. And it's a giant scythe, which is again like can't be understated.
Yeah, oh, we can talk about serious themes. So, but why don't have fun at the same time, right? I like all those moments when you see, for example, when Illyana is trying to summon the sword, and different kind of weapons and
Yeah.
things happen. That was a lot of fun, and I had, for most of the panels, I had freedom to do what I wanted to do. The different weapons and the faces. That was a lot of fun too.
I think to go back to also Maddie and how you illustrated her, so often, like early on, she was just a Jean clone and she was very soft and pure, like back in, the 80s. And then she became the Goblin Queen and she was just drawn like very wicked and like arching eyebrows. And the way you drew her when she was talking about how Krakoa is pretty much hell for her was very sensitive. And for the first time, I was like, this is not a Jean clone. This is something else. Like visually, that struck me. And also the way you had it just like straight in on her was just like, hey, we got to face this. She's saying something serious. Like, let's not just brush her off as like, crazy Madelyne Pryor, but like she's a person, she has feelings. And it kind of raised her for me from like being that dupe or, the person who caused a whole bunch of bad stuff with Inferno to being something else. And I think that was like part of her transformation. I don't know if this makes super sense, but it was just very sensitive and her facial expressions were really like good. And I just felt like for the first time she had been shown some humanity kind of. I don't know if that makes sense, but like, yeah.
I follow exactly what you're saying. I think I do at least. The art and the story treated Maddie as being about Maddie. A lot of the times Maddie has shown up, even when she pops up doing other things, which may or may not make sense in canon, it's always how she serves someone else, how she relates to Sinister or Jean or Scott or Havoc or Cable. It's never about how she relates to herself. And that kind of front on way that we saw her with the art really gave the message that this is about Maddie's relation to Maddie, and that we need to relate to Maddie as Maddie and not as an extension of someone else. And yeah, the name of the arc is Labors of Magic, but even then, it wasn't about how Maddie related to Magik either. And I think that was treating the character with care.
Yeah, exactly. You said it a lot more eloquently than me, but yeah, that's what I meant.
You got me there. I wouldn't have gotten there without you.
I mean, maybe one of the funniest beats for me in the book is Piotr, of all people, having like the awareness and competence to be like, guys, this is what Krakoa is actually all about. It was just like, Piotr? Okay.
She even seemed surprised. She was like,
I think she's like,
thanks.
yeah, thanks. Pete." But this idea of like, because I'm a big defender of the belief that Maddie had agency to a degree. Gabriel and I are going to fight about this again during Inferno, to some extent. And this idea of like, so Maddie's first instinct of like claiming an identity for self perhaps was to sacrifice all of Earth to hell. Not great, but like trusting her instinct that like maybe there was something in that that would be healing and reconciliatory for you, but this time we're gonna let like community lift you up to that, and that you're not going through it. Like if this whole, I mean, it feels like the whole run that the two of you had in this arc especially is about like healing is coming from self, but like it's fostered by community. And so now it is like a community elevating Maddie to like get a chance to, like, we're going to give you the support you need to follow through on this idea that you had, didn't execute super well. Things went not great for the babies. We're going to give you this opportunity. And like the idea of Krakoa not needing to be a place, but like being a principle of like, we can only heal together, and you're a part of together. Like let's let that happen on your terms, but let's do it with you. I thought was so, like, it just affirms the agency that I feel like Maddie had. I can feel Gabe simmering during Inferno, and like just multiplies it in this arc. That's so awesome.
Yeah, and it's so sad that at some point Marvel is going to undo everything.
Yep.
But this is we don't have to go into this. But to be honest, I don't care about what they're going to do afterwards. If they want to change the outfit to the black again, if they whatever, I'm so proud of what we did for this particular story, and that's how I want to keep the characters in my mind. I like to see other artists doing the new armor, though. I like to see how they the reinterpretation of the visuals, either for Mary or for Illyana, but for the story, how they are going to do the next thing for Illyana and for Mary, I don't care. I don't. To be honest, it's for me that's the end, quote unquote, for the characters for me. I hope that the Marvel would call Vita and I in the future for more New Mutants. I would.
Please.
I
Yes,
would
please.
come back. I would come back for, but I would love to do something in those terms, which was you can do your thing, which is a part of what's happening in the X universe. I don't know what if that makes sense, but for us, felt like we were doing something that is very a part of everything else happening, and this freedom elevated the product very much. Uh, I think that one of the reasons is we could do our Vertigo book inside the X-Men line.
Yeah, I was gonna say, like, for people interested in more of that, we interviewed Rod a while ago, and we talk like specifically you talk about a lot about this. Like, this book has had a lot of freedom, so like you both could creatively do whatever you wanted to do, and that's not the usual for like X-Men comics in Marvel. Like, that's not how
Mhm.
most books work. They have a lot of planning and intertwining to do. So you both had a lot of freedom, and you were like two, like in this arc there were more people working on other things like the flashbacks, but most of it was you two working and then the letterer, and that was it. So that's a lot, like that's, it really shows like you both, Peter and you, could have like all the creative decisions. And since you were talking amongst yourselves, it was not like unusual. It's not the usual Marvel way these days. Like, it's not. It's just not.
No, because it's most of time it's the job. So you get the script from the writer. The writer needs we the writer doesn't have time to talk to you about the story because he needs to work on more scripts. It's a production line, and same for you for the arts. I mean that you need to get pages done day by day. So it's hard to have what we did in this case, which is take time to talk about the story, and we I consider us both creators in this, not just writer and arts, but we became something very cohesive, creatively speaking. So and I know that I'm not going to have this again. It's going to be very hard. Maybe I don't know. You never
We
know.
hope you do. We
But
hope
yeah,
you do, because the
but
result
that's
is
the reality.
amazing.
Yeah, that's the reality. No, of the reality of the industry is that comics are products, and you need to get them done in time. It's very hard to face the job as a artistic product just because the nature of the industry. Uh, s- that said, I want to work with Vita again in a creator owned. I don't know when, but
Oh,
we want to do that. We talking about. We have ideas. So yeah, probably in the future we are going to have something. It's another collaboration.
Beautiful. Beautiful.
I
Awesome.
really wanted to, and
that's amazing.
maybe using some of their ideas for New Mutants that they never had the chance to use.
Ooh.
I don't know. I'm not saying anything else. I'm going to stop from now because I don't know how and when it's going to happen. But we both want to collaborate again, and probably it's going to be for image or something creator owned. I'm looking forward to it.
I'm
It's
looking
so
forward
funny.
to it.
Yeah, we are
Yeah,
Yeah,
definitely.
we
looking
are
forward to
all
it.
looking forward to it. Yeah, it's so funny because Rod saw my face and was like, "I'm not sure," because I was like,
I have
Yeah.
to wonder if there must be someone who works on the X books who really thrives on that interlocked groupthink, page by page kind of mechanistic way of creating a comic. But anytime I've talked to anyone who's worked on the X books, their favorite times were always we were left alone for this run, or we were left alone for these issues. And those, I think as readers, as audience, those are the comics that we really remember the best. Those are the ones that we love the most. I know the sales must be good on the really tightly interlocking, churning out the issues comics, because they keep doing them. But I wonder if there is an artist or a writer who is really like, no, that's where I want to be. That's the part I love.
Yeah, and I imagine that for the editorial, it's how they say, the blessing, the curse at the same time.
Yeah.
Because once we finish our arc, I don't know if people are going to care about characters like they did because the arc. I guess that it's tricky for the editorial to plan what's next after something like what we did for. I heard that they are going to cancel New Mutants.
Oh, they cancel New Mutants. They
They already did.
Yeah, Ross. This was. Oh, I'm not gonna get into it. They cancel New Mutants, and they then develop a mini series, which should have been like New Mutants 31, should have been the start of the mini series, and not how it happened, because they did New Mutants 31 till 33, then they cancel New Mutants with Charlie J. Anders. We're gonna have Charlie J. Anders on the show, just so you all know. That's coming in the future. The creator of Escapade, the new character, the new trans character of New Mutants. So they cancel that in the 33, so only 3 issues of Charlie J. Anders, and then they throw like a mini series, which is a better way to sell comics. I get it. I wish they had done the mini series in the beginning, so it's I don't know. I'm gonna say, as a Spanish person, I feel for you Americans in a lot of ways, and one of them is Marvel Comics, because when we when we have a story here, we get the story. Like when there's like, I'm pretty sure New Mutants 31 to 33 and New Mutants Lethal Legion are gonna come up in one single thing in Spain, not separated. The mess is Marvel. Every editorial that translates the books is like, what is this? And they try to make it make sense. So
Well, you don't like reading your comics 3 at a time and then they renumber? That's not.
You don't enjoy that?
It's not. It was. I have to say, I feel like the most egregious example of that was like late 2000s, like early 2010, when like Pads, which is like, that's a full podcast, but Pads X Factor reverted to like the legacy numbering, so you went from like issue like 30
45
to like,
or something.
Yeah, to like issue like 100 something, and you're like, what the fuck? Like, where?
Just to give everyone a chuckle, we had a show yesterday about New X-Men Academy X, and Duna just kept sending me messages like, what are they doing with the title? And it went from like New Mutants 1 through 13,
New X-Men,
then
Academy
Academy X-Men, and then to New X-Men, and it just was a.
And House of M was in the middle, just there, just in case you couldn't get confused. Yeah. The naming of the books
it's
is
so
something.
easy. I made a mistake on Twitter a few weeks ago, and it caused a big wave, and I felt so terrible. I got 2 X books confused because they have Legends and Legacy. And I was saying something critical about someone on one who is a known bully and harasser of people. And I used the title of the other one, and it blew up, and people all over, and some people from other websites and comics press were asking me what happened, what's the dirt? And I was like, Wait, there's no dirt, there's no anything like but it's so easy because the titles of things will be similar, numbers will change, like, and it must be terrible for editorial. It must be terrible because some of this is assigned, I'm sure, from even beyond them. I know, at DC when Dan Didio stepped down and he was no longer head of DC for like a year or so, and like a year in, he started to say, "Well, this decision that I'm blamed for, and this decision weren't me. They were beyond me even." And we like to say the buck stops here somewhere in comics, and it's like it doesn't even stop with comics. It's somebody from a completely different department of some mega company.
Maybe the people who made the New Mutants movie are the one that are naming them.
They're behind everything. Everything, it comes down to that.
Yeah, no, okay, getting serious and answering to Rod's question, the book got Charlie Jenanders got as a writer, and I said already that I feel like if you unbeat that channel like really Claremont era, Charlie Jenanders channels a lot of Simonson era. It's more fun. It's like it's teenagers again. It's a lot of things like and the art style, which I don't remember who the artist is, and I'm dying because he's from my city. Uh, but anyway, so I will remember at some point. But like Alberto Albuquerque, yes. So the art by Alberto, it's love him. Is really like channeling that vibe. They chance artists for Little Legion, but anyway, it's channeling that vibe of like Simonson era, so like more fun and more like
Kind of like
cartoony.
a Brett Blevins type thing.
Yeah.
It's a
Yeah,
little
kind of
more,
Brett
like,
Blevins
and painterly.
style. Some more cartoony, some more like characters doing this. So I feel like it fits. I mean, it doesn't fit because they canceled the series so soon after, but it would have fit pretty well after what Biran you did because it was like lighthearted after all the other stuff.
Yeah, they should
But
have done a Magic miniseries. Instead, have the story inside the New Mutants book. I think that would be better for the book to build a style and to have that would make easier for the editorial to keep working on New Mutants, because what we did was so different, so Magic focused so I think that that would be better for the story, for both the story and the New Mutants book, to find an audience. I think that we found our audience, but for the specific project, which it's hard to see as a New Mutants book, if I make sense.
yeah, it's not a team book that
No,
much.
it's definitely,
Like Rain is there, Danny is there, Colossus is there, but they're
They
like
serve for Magic and Maddie
Maddie.
story.
Yeah, it's like the Storm and Illyana book, which I don't get why it's called Storm and Illyana, but that's another Storm and Magic book. But like that is that book from the 80s, like it has that vibe of like it could be have been a mini.
Yes.
Okay, before we go to anything else, because I have to ask you about this, since we're talking about the future, Old Lady Illyana, what a great idea. And I didn't know it was such a great idea. You had fun with the design? I mean, I know there's like a couple more of Illyana's we haven't gone through. Matt Hager and Conor, help me.
Surprise, Illyana.
Queen Illyana.
Oh yeah, the evil thing. Anyway, so yeah, but the one I'm more interested in is like Old Lady Illyana, because that was great. That was one of those moments. Also, like, gotta say, I don't want to get too emotional here, but as someone who has gone through a ton shit of trauma, I I'm more surprised every year that become I keep having more years ahead. I didn't know I was gonna make it till here. So like seeing someone like Illyana being old was good for my heart. Gotta be honest.
Yeah, this issue, it's as I said before, it's the whole idea came. What happened is that Vita asked me what you are going to draw. What characters do you like? I said I like to draw snow because it's easier. 'Cause I don't need to draw a lot of backgrounds because that would make it easier in that and then I could focus more on the characters because at the time we had deadline issues and the white background would help the process and they know how much I like warlock character and how much I like sci-fi. So we put everything together to come up with the session of the story. So yeah, all I knew is that we would have a old woman Illyana, and then from this point we start creating the environment and the idea of the warlock, the virus infect the demons and everything, just because I wanted to draw more warlock and is no environment.
I think actually you picking the snow, I don't know if you guys agree with me, is perfect because in the Storm and Magic limited series, when Illyana gets lost, she's in the snow. And maybe you did this on purpose, but when they initially go away after her soul sword breaks, that area that you drew looks exactly like where she was in the snow trying to make the acorn work for her. So yeah, I noticed that and I thought that was awesome. So I think that's a perfect thing to have the snow.
Yeah, no, that's why we use it because Vita saw the that story from years ago, and then they said, okay, we can use it because of this. So it was all on purpose.
Yeah,
I really
That's
like
cool.
with this Limbo design. I haven't really liked use of Limbo or the design of Limbo since probably Mark Badger, like way many more years ago than I want to count up right now. Because most of the time when we see Limbo, in the last few decades, it's very busy, and they're trying to make it scary and dread and heavy, and it's not really what Limbo classically means, but it's also not the Limbo that I remember from X Comics that I was interested in, which is that white background and that openness. And so having that expansive white again feels very Limbo to me, and it lets it be not about a place that they're in, but about these characters and these people. It really, to me, puts a weight on them, and that this isn't about characters in an environment. This is just about characters. It's just about people facing other people. And so, that really appealed to me here.
It was almost like a liminal space, which Illyana even says, like, hey, I was trapped in a liminal space, I think in one of the earlier issues that you guys did. And I think the idea of Limbo being more liminal is an amazing idea. And I always really liked when it was portrayed that way. I agree with you. Like sometimes it was just too busy. They were trying to make it too scary and it kind of like failed because you were just like, oh, I've seen this before. I'm kind of used to it. But like the lack of anything is actually scarier.
I agree. I agree.
It's like definitionless at a time where Illyana now feels like undefined and like unmoored, and so to have her just set in this sort of vast emptiness, it's like, because Limbo I feel like can sometimes be treated as a character, and this, like, it feels very much just more like a reflective setting for where Illyana's headspace is at. I love that her mutant gift is no longer associated with Limbo. Like, it's such a tiny line in the data page, but I adore that, like, this thing that makes mutants so special and that is so central to their self-conceptions and their identity of self, like, it is now, like, irrefutably no longer tied to her trauma. She no longer has to go back through Limbo anytime she is being a hero. She doesn't have to go through Limbo anytime she's, being Kate's school bus or backpack, rather. Like, she doesn't have to revisit this, and now she's also free of the fear, and this was big in especially Claremont New Mutants. Like, anytime they had to, like, pit stop in Limbo, there was this, like, persistent distress of, like, am I ruining these people by having them here? And, like, now she just gets to be a hero without that fear hanging over her of, like, what is Limbo going to do to these people who aren't as touched by it as I am? Like, now she just gets to, like, have a stepping disc, go through a place. We don't know the place yet. She seems to feel like it's not really a place and it's just instantaneous. But, like, that, which is, like, its own, like, cool thing, like, that it is instantaneous, that there isn't a pit stop in her worst memories, is just like,
It's like a therapy session.
This is a good therapy session.
This
Yeah,
whole
it's like
run
a
is a
really
therapy
good,
session.
like, it's okay. It's like a therapy plan. Sorry.
I think especially, in the 80s, like I said, there was this sense, and it has its place in storytelling and entertainment, of, panning for gold in shit, where you see a lot of characters, especially in the 80s, and through the 90s, where the character has to be beaten down severely and shamed, and it's almost always a woman on her hands and knees with her face in the mud at some point, kind of thing, and that's where she will find her strength. And Illyana kind of suffered through that too much, and I think as a recurrence, even 10 years ago or less, in certain runs, where it was this very much, she will always be tied to her trauma, but that is where she steels herself, or this kind of reminding herself to be negative about things, because being cynical will help you survive. And there is a place for that in story. There's a place for that in real life, but it's not super heroic. And ultimately, I know some X fans hate to think of the X-Men as superheroes. And a big thing with the early Krakoa era was these are no longer superhero comics. They damn well ought to be. In my personal opinion, ultimately, these have to be superheroes because they were set up that way. They were created that way initially. It's only fair, especially to new readers or to younger readers, that they do something superheroic. It can't just be the focus on, digging through the mire, or she has to visit hell every time she wants to do something. Something has to be heroic or bright or fun. One thing I really liked with this run is that is as heavy as things can get, as dark as things can get, there's some really goofy moments, even when, old Illyana and our Illyana and Warlock comes, and he's got his pointy little horns there, and he's like, you have to give up one of your Illyanas. And she holds up the little Illyana, and she's like, no, we keep all our Illyanas. And she's got like the little keychain, keychain cell.
And when she snacks coffee, when moment when Illyana snacks coffee like this, and old Illyana is looking at her like, that's me.
Yeah.
Or when they both just start like cracking up when the demon's like, you have to get, and they're both just like, no.
Yeah, there's a lot of like really sweet moments.
Yeah, and seeing older Illyana, to go back to that, was really nice for me, because so often older Illyana, when she was portrayed, especially in the ones that I'm rereading now, the classic run, it's always an evil Illyana. It's always Illyana has caused the end of the world. So it was nice to see an Illyana who was fighting for the, the correct or the good side, So that was really cool to see an older Illyana that, hadn't succumbed to being completely evil and was still fighting for, kind of like how she says, we just do. That's just what we do. And that she didn't give up and she didn't give in to things. So that was nice to see that Illyana as well. And it was kind of good to have that because it's kind of like the farewell to her ruling Limbo that, like, in the end, it didn't have to be that way. And it kind of just goes with the theme of her, letting go and things being okay, which was great.
It's such a beautiful design, old Illyana. I think, just visually and the details that are in there. It's not a lot of, it's not heavy detail. It's not heavy, there's this bit and this bit you can pick out, but it communicates a full life. And like Duna said, it kind of gives us permission to get old at some point, in a way. If Illyana can get old, we can all, we can all get old.
Yeah.
Which is a big thing, I think, especially for Illyana fans who are all like super traumatized.
No,
Yeah,
you
all I needed, the description of the character was an old woman that had to fight during her all life to survive. So that's what I tried to come up with. You can see that the character has been fighting for years to survive. So it's old, but also tired of fighting all those years. But you can see a change when the Illyana when they meet the our Illyana and the old woman Illyana. You can see some change for both character, and that's for me, that's the fun part of. I like drawing fight scenes and come up with badass design for characters, but I like the subtle moments that tell more for the characters than just fight scenes. And it's fun. It's funny how we needed to have fight scenes, otherwise people wouldn't care about the book because it's a superhero book. So we we didn't need fight scenes for the story to move forward, but we try, even though we had to put some fight scenes into the book, we try to make them uh, feel important for the story to move forward. But we what we wanted to have more, it was the character driven moments. That was what was important for us working on this project.
I think that really shows because for me, the reason I love the New Mutants a little bit more than X-Men was there were those little moments, those little character driven moments. And when I was like 11, 12, 13 reading it, I saw like the humanity in these teenage characters, especially like I would say Sinkovic, but also like issue 55 to 73 of classic New Mutants. And I saw that again with your book. And as a reader, as someone who kind of put down comics because that seemed to get lost, especially after like there was no more New Mutants. Not that I was around for the original run, but when I realized like I was out of New Mutants, I was like, oh, like the comics at the time they didn't have the heart or like the sense of humor or those tiny character driven moments or even just the facial expressions. So reading what you guys did made me really, really happy. And I enjoyed it so much. And I was like, this is what was so good. And this is what I loved so much. Like, and this is what I love now about comic books. And I think more comic books need to go that route where yes, there's battling in it, there are battles, but like the characters are why we're here. That's what's important. And if it's just battles, then it's not really anything, you know? You have to have some sort of characters behind that.
I absolutely agree. If you guys ever want to put out another book that's just X-Men getting therapy, I want it. Take my money. That being said, I did like how the battles fit into the narrative here, with Illyana having a battle against Sim and a battle against Belasko and a battle against herself as she kind of moves through the healing of the trauma. It integrated well with those character moments and moving it forward. And also, they just looked cool. You have Illyana with a sword that is warlock, that is shooting out death beams. Like, I'm in. I loved all of that.
Cool.
And I was happy because Warlock in the past few issues hadn't gotten a lot of love, and he was really sad about Doug. And to see Warlock in action again with Illyana was really cool, and I was happy about that too.
No, that's one of the favorite characters for me to draw, Warlock. I I think I said that the other time that I was here, that you need to the Warlock, and that's Sinkavich's fault. You need to draw him differently. It's hard to adapt the character, to use the traditional anatomy, male anatomy, for him. For me, it doesn't work. You need to draw him as a almost as a cartoon character.
Warlock is at his best when he's like a little crazy doodle.
Yeah.
Like that, always, and you capture it so well. Little like napkin doodle pencil Warlock is always the coolest Warlock.
Yeah, I like Warlock. I visualize as a Looney Tunes cartoon for me.
Yeah,
Yep.
that's
Yeah.
so true.
And that's one thing I really like with this run, and with Warlock in general, is there's a lot of different styles going on, and I love when a comic has that many different styles going on. I liked how seamless it seemed to me. Your art and Jen Dosema's art was not that there's the same style, but there's the same vibe through the story. It doesn't feel like these were pages that were farmed out and they had no context things. But also when you do different styles, the storybook pages, but even within one page or one panel, sometimes there's a clear like genre styling of things, whether it's sci-fi or it's like a fantasy RPG kind of thing, or
Or the Alice in Wonderland thing.
Yeah. And I like that. I think comics is one place that can do that narratively better than like, it doesn't really work as well in TV or movies, that kind of thing, animation. But I think in a comic, because we have time to sit with it and go panel to panel, so it made it really fun, this arc.
Yeah, and it was fun to work on this arc, and hopefully it was fun for the readers to see, and they will feel that each issue is happening in a different world. That was my goal, is it's for each issue to really feel that Illyana was traveling to another world or another time. And for me as an artist, it's always fun to play with uh, genres and styles.
I
Yeah.
I love your tiny details too. Like I'm thinking specifically the like Alice in Wonderlandy trope of like the mushroom forest is just like gorgeously drawn, but like the tiny touches of like, well, because this isn't actually Alice in Wonderland and this is Illyana, like having Belasko / the Red Kings like uh card knights / demons like not have like traditional card suits but have the tarot suits on them is like
Hmm.
such a brilliant tiny little touch that like you could ignore, like, but it just makes it feel so much richer and like tells you so much about this. Like it just for a setting that is functionally like 25 pages long, like defines it so well in like a single panel with some card people. Like it's so
Hmm.
cool.
And all the other characters from the uh, Alice in Wonderland, they were supposed to be demons transformed into those characters. So the Cheshire cat,
Hmm.
it's some demon transformed into those characters. And when I drew them in like in the garden, I wanted to show this to make them like they didn't want to be like this, but because everything was transformed into the Alice in Wonderland, they also got transformed, and but they didn't want to be like this. They don't like to be like those characters.
Yeah, Limbo is a very adaptable place, so having different art and different styles really works so well. Yeah, that was good.
And it definitely separated Limbo from how it's been portrayed a lot of just being another generic hell dimension, and it works so well with the story.
Yeah, there's a moment where Illyana said like it's easy to fall into old habits in
Mhm.
limbo, and that really calls like what you and Vita did with limbo specifically, which was like a different like a place. We have talked about this in the Inferno, so like the place that is like Illyana's trauma.
Yeah, no, that's the point. The We need to show the relationship between where Ileana was on what was happening for the character, and to show everything through the pages, the artwork, the environment, the what's that was important part of the telling this story, to have Limbo reflecting the emotional struggle from Ileana.
Yeah, I also liked in the writing how when they first get there and they're in the library, Maddie's like, "Why are you talking like that to Illyana? Because she's
Mhm.
being very formal. She's not
Yeah,
joking
that's
around."
yeah.
And that's kind of like what you were saying. And I liked that that happens with trauma. It can, when you go back to that moment of trauma, it can change your very being almost. And it just showed how deeply Illyana is very hurt. And like, I think people remember it, but they don't really remember it. Like they don't actually think about how deep the hurt is, to the point where it would change fundamentally who she was when she has to go to that place. So that's why it was so important that she had to let it go. So I thought those lines about Illyana being like, well, everything had to be formal. Even how I breathed was a certain way. I think that was a very unfortunately real thing that a lot of people with trauma feel, and it was good that that was talked about. But it also like showed Illyana's trauma again. Not that it needs to be shown a billion times, but it was a good way to show it.
Well, I think with similar to that, when they're dealing with the contract and they're both Maddie and Illyana are so precise about things, and they've had to live precisely. They've had to live with that kind of precision, because if we look back at older stories with Illyana, it's the going back and forth between being a little girl and being a teenager and having to negotiate to people. Is that me still? Is that her still? And with Maddie, she goes from, Scott straight out asking her, are you really Jean Grey kind of thing. And she kind of gets made into, she's not really even Jean Grey. Like in that time, like visually, she doesn't look like Jean Grey was drawn in the issues right before Jean Grey dies. What she looks like is like this perfect Jean Grey.
She's Louise Simonson.
Yeah. And, and so there's this sense that even when they talk about clones or dupes, it's like what you were saying a moment ago about the demons that have to be these Alice in Wonderland characters now. And with the Mark Badger story from Excalibur, where they have to be superheroes and they don't want to be superheroes in that, the demons. It's like, who the hell wants to be in limbo and be Captain America? I don't want to be Captain America, demon. There's this sense that all of these characters are being denied, their own autonomy that they have anyway. You have it anyway. You can't be like, your autonomy can't be taken away from you in a real sense, but it can be denied. And they've all had it denied. They've all had to learn to be a specific thing, to act or speak a specific way, in order for other people to deal with them, in order for people to work with them. If Maddie can be perfect Jean Grey, then the X people will deal with her. When she's not that, they don't want to deal with her. She's the Goblin Queen. Illyana has to be, for some people, no matter what her age or experience, she has to be what the other person wants of her. She has to be what her brother wants of her. She has to be what Danny wants of her, separate. And so it's another thing I love about Limbo is that sense of, it's really easy to slip into those things, even if you don't want to have other people shape you, is something I think that everyone experiences to one degree or another.
I agree. Yeah, completely. Yeah.
Guys,
Yeah, I was gonna
need-
say,
We've gone a long time.
no, but I want to make sure that we talked about everything that you want to talk about. But
we did.
yeah, I might have 10 minutes. So.
If anyone wants to say anything that they have not said, this is the moment.
Just thank you for telling the story. Thank you for coming to talk to us. It was a blast.
No, thanks very much for having invited me again. And hopefully in the future we have another chance to talk about stuff.
Yeah.
X-Men or
Otherwise,
my project with Vita.
Yeah.
Maybe.
yeah, that's for sure. That's for sure. That we would love that, and it's always great to have you, Rod. Like, it's amazing, and as well, thank you to Conor and to Aislinn, because like I brought here the two best Illyana fans that I could find. I was like, if we're gonna interview Rod, we're gonna do it well. So, and I am delighted about the conversation. I'm like, for real, thank you, Rod. It's great to have this look behind the scenes, especially for people like us who love so much this character that we keep saying or Illyana one time and again to the whole show. I was like, like and one time and again, or Illyana. So yeah.
No, I'm so proud of what we did, and I love when they asked me to do the dark web pages for that part of story. I I really wanted to do it because for me it was almost a continuation to that arc, and it was any chance to draw Illyana is I have to say yes.
So okay, thank you everyone for coming. Thank you, Rod, Connor, Aislinn.
Thank you.
You all have been amazing. And yeah, okay, so plug in. Aislinn has a Mutant Memories series on her channel. I want to remind everyone of that. I'm definitely gonna be a guest on one of the issues, like later down the line, because the issues that I love more about mutants are like later than what she's doing right now. I think she's on 10.
I'm on 8, number 8.
Oh God, Nova Roma.
Yes, I was like,
Oh, no.
it's coming.
God. Yeah, and if like Aislinn, feel free to like. I feel like I can say this. Feel free to DM any of the people here about like
Okay.
coming to Mutant Memories anytime if you want, because like you're starting to do a thing that I feel like is very kind to us. So like Connor also has a web page where he's going through every issue of Claremont's run. It's nuts. But like anyway, so these are really like cool people to have in mind for that, because I think
Yeah,
every one of
you
us
guys should
love-
definitely come on and talk about old New Mutants with me, because no one in my real life understands anything I'm talking about.
There
Well,
are
I feel like just now, even I definitely am going to do a column on Amara and indigeneity, just because
Wow.
that stuff brought up suddenly, and I was suddenly like, "Oh, wait, I can do that."
That's
So thank you
interesting.
both for
Yay.
prompting that.
Okay, so thank you all so much, and thank for everyone who came and leave comments, Asta and Jeremy especially, and for everyone who watches in the future. And that's it.